This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the December 18th, 2024 South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners meeting. I'm going to call this meeting to order. We have all commissioners present this evening except for Commissioner Johns. At this time, I would ask you to all please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to announce that all public sessions of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners are electronically recorded, filed, and posted to the Township website for public access. At this time, I would ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to please review our public virtual meeting rules.
Thank you. The public virtual meeting rules are as follows. Courtesy of the floor for non-agenda items will be at the beginning and end of the agenda. Public comment will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. For all listed agenda items, the board president will call for courtesy of the floor prior to the Board of Commissioners taking action on that specific agenda item. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. You will be asked to state your name and address for the record and may then proceed with asking your question. For those participating virtually, please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid any background noise that may cause interference during the meeting. The chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address into the chat box. The staff member monitoring GoToMeeting will then unmute your microphone and you will have the opportunity to comment or ask a question.
Thank you, Tom. I'd also like to announce that the Board of Commissioners met in executive session prior to tonight's meeting and on December 12th to discuss legal and personnel matters. Agenda item 4 is courtesy of the floor, opportunity for any member of the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Is there anyone present who'd like to address the board this evening? Is there anyone online?
Not seeing anything.
Very good. Moving on to agenda item 5, meeting minutes from the December 4th, 2024 meeting were distributed in advance to the commissioners. Are there any comments or questions? May I have a motion to approve?
So second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Then item 6, ordinances. We have an ordinance of the Township of South Whitehall, County of Lehigh, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, establishing the amount of the compensation payable to the elected township tax collector, establishing the amount of compensation payable to the elected township tax collector, establishing the eligible reimbursements to be paid to the elected tax collector, authorizing the elected tax collector to charge, and establishing the amounts of real estate certification fees, fees for real estate tax duplicates, and return check charges fees, and providing for a repealer clause, severability clause, and effective date. And Tom, if you'd please present.
Thank you. Pursuant to the requirements of the local tax collection law, if the governing body of the township is inclined to revise, either increase or decrease the compensation of the position of elected tax collector, official action must occur on or before February 15th of the year preceding the year that the elected tax collector would assume office following a municipal general election. In other words, the Board of Commissioners have until February 15th, 2025 to either increase or decrease the compensation rate for the elected tax collector for collecting the real estate tax. Any change to the current rate would take effect for 2026 and must be done by ordinance for South Whitehall Township, which is a first-class township. So specifically, the local tax collection law confirms that the total compensation of the tax collector shall not exceed $10,000. So reimbursements for actual needful expenditures for printing, postage, books, blanks, and forms are also permitted. The tax collector may charge fees to taxpayers that are not paid directly by the township for real estate tax certifications and duplicate tax fees. Currently, the tax collector for South Whitehall receives the $10,000 compensation, reimbursements for printing and postage, and the tax collector is also permitted to assess $30 for real estate certifications. Upon review of other local municipalities in the area, it is identified that comparative municipalities permit the elected tax collector to assess fees, typically $5 for the duplicate real estate tax fee and typically around $30 for the real estate tax certification fee. So as indicated, it's important to note that first-class townships are capped at the $10,000 amount, while second-class townships allow for compensation up to 5% of the real estate taxes collected. So the recommendation to the board would be to adjust the tax collector compensation to provide for the real estate tax duplicate fee of $5, to confirm the $10,000 compensation for the the cap for the first class township, and to also provide for the real estate tax certification charge of $30. And also in there, if there's any ever return check charges, that the tax collector is permitted to seek reimbursement for those at their same rate charged to the tax collector by the banking institution which returned the check. So the draft ordinance was reviewed by Director of Legal Affairs, Jennifer Aldifer, and following some revisions for purposes of clarifying the intent of the ordinance, the ordinance is ready for advertisement if the Board of Commissioners are so inclined.
Very good. Thank you, Tom. Thank you for presenting the chart with the relevant information about neighboring municipalities and what charges are reflected there, and that ours would be in line with that. So I appreciate the information. Does the board have any comments or questions on this agenda item?
No.
Is there any public comment? Any online comments? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to proceed with advertising of said ordinance?
So moved.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Agenda item 7, resolutions. 7A, we have a resolution granting preliminary final approval to a major plan entitled Parkland School District New Operations Center Phase 4. I'll ask our Director of Community Development, Dave Manhart, to present.
Yes, this is an application to further develop the property located at 2619 Stadium Drive. Plan proposes an additional 21,459 square feet of impervious surface for the expansion of the northern parking lot on the 8.7 acre parcel. The property is served by public water and is zoned rural residential 2. Parkland School District is the owner and applicant. At the November 14th, 2024 meeting, the Planning Commission recommended conditional preliminary final plan approval with 17 conditions, 19 recommended waivers, and 2 recommended deferrals. Those conditions may have been, you'll notice that there's 17 conditions in the resolution. Conditions come on and off as they're satisfied, so there were a couple that came on, and then we put a couple other conditions on for the Board of Commissioners. So if there's any questions on specific conditions, we can certainly answer those. With that, the applicant is here to answer any other questions.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. Before I turn to the applicant, I'd ask our township engineer if you have any engineering comments for the board.
Yes, thank you. This is a continuation of the project that had 3 previous phases. This is an addition of parking only. I believe the applicant can speak to it, but there doesn't seem to be a change of use. It's just additional parking added. So we have a few comments, but based upon the minor nature of these comments, we have no problem recommending engineering approval.
Very good. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening, Scott McMackin with Cowan Associates. The proposal before the board this evening is essentially a continuation of the Operations Center project that was previously approved by the board. If you recall, during that some of those prior meetings, there was some discussion about trying to provide as much parking as possible, overflow parking for the stadium across the street, overflow parking for football games, things of that nature. We discussed at the time that we were in conversation with PP&L, because to expand the parking lot, we were going to need to get an easement from PP&L to be able to do that. So we have been working kind of behind the scenes for the past 18 months or so with PP&L, have secured an easement agreement with them. And so we're able to come before you tonight. We're proposing an additional 43 parking spaces from what was there previously. So on previous phases, I believe there were 94 total available spaces. Now there's going to be 137 total spaces. So this is simply trying to accommodate what we discussed before, maximizing the site potential for that overflow parking.
Very good, thank you. And we appreciate the extra effort that you've put in to accommodate those parking spaces for the overflow parking for the stadium. Are there any board comments or questions?
Commissioner Kelly, I would just note that I will recuse myself from any discussion or decision on this matter due to a conflict of interest.
Very good, thank you. Commissioner Roth? Other,
Scott, as a person who rarely misses a Parkland home football game, I'm glad to see this going in.
Thank you.
Yeah, we appreciate you, taking our comments and trying to alleviate some problems. But with the stormwater management, Tony, this is not going to cause any issues with the additional impervious surface.
They actually are providing an underground detention basin for this additional parking lot, so it is a standalone, if you will, mitigation.
Okay.
I do have a quick question, and please forgive me if I may have missed this. There was a lot of information in our packet. But was there a lighting plan submitted for that maintenance parking lot? I know there was one for the upper parking lot, but was the lighting plan submitted for the maintenance area?
Yes, there was, yes.
Okay, all right. I guess I did miss it. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Sure.
any other comments from the board? Are there any public comments? Any online? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to adopt said resolution granting preliminary final approval to a major plan entitled Parkland School District New Operations Center Phase 4?
Motion.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? We have one abstention. Motion carries 3-0 to 1. Thank you
Thanks for
very
your
much,
time.
and good luck
Appreciate
with
it.
your plan.
Thank you.
And item 7B, actually 3, the next 3 items are very similar and will all be presented in the same memo. 3 resolutions. The first is a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Township of South Whitehall adopting a revised policy for establishing, releasing, and updating improvement security. And I'll ask our Director of Community Development, Dave Manhart, to present.
Yes, so what we have in front of us are revisions to policies, procedures, and agreements that we use for land development projects. So to secure improvements, escrow policies, and a bond policy. So these are all periodically we go back in and update these policies to reflect changes in procedures. So a lot of this is clarification of procedures and to clearly spell it out for township staff and applicants and engineers so that we're all on the same page moving forward. They're kind of all, it's a lot of nitty gritty. So if there's any general questions, I'm happy to answer.
Very good. Thank you, Dave. I reviewed all 3 of these documents. I think they certainly provide uniform direction and very clear and concise policy. I'm very, very grateful to see the revision and moving forward with this. Does the board have any comments or questions?
I do have a quick question. Now that these are being memorialized, I guess 7B through 7D, anytime there's a change or a revision, will it come before us like it is tonight?
The changes to the actual documents, yes.
Yes. Okay.
We may have to make some tweaks to the procedure. Actually, some of what is in these documents are changes that are reflected due to the bank and how the banks are handling accounts. So we have to kind of update our policies to that. So if we do have changes to the policies or the agreements, they will come back, yes.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the board? Any public comment? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to adopt said resolution adopting a revised policy for establishing, releasing, and updating improvement security? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. 7C, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Township of South Whitehall adopting an escrow policy and revised escrow and reimbursement agreement for subdivision, land development, and professional services applications. Same memo applies that Dave has just reviewed for the board.
I would like to add that I would like to thank Jennifer Aldifer. She put a lot of work on this, so it's great to have her on board.
Excellent. Thank you for that reminder. Yes, we do appreciate her work on this. Any board questions? Any public comment? Do I have a motion to adopt said resolution?
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. 7D, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the Township of South Whitehall adopting a revised policy and procedure regarding the use of performance bonds as improvement security. Do you have anything to add to this one? Okay. Excellent. Any board comments? Public comment? Do I have a motion to adopt said resolution? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you, Dave. 7E, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township to authorize supplemental appropriations from funds actually received within the 2024 fiscal year to balance designated line item expenditures within the 2024 approved South Whitehall Township General Fund budget. I'll ask Township Manager Tom Petrucci to present.
Thank you. So Section 1701C of the First Class Township Code authorizes the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township to at any time by resolution make supplemental appropriations for any lawful purpose from any funds on hand or estimated to be received within the fiscal year and not appropriated to any other purpose, including the proceeds of any borrowing as authorized by law. Supplemental appropriations may be made whether or not an appropriation for that purpose was included in the original budget as adopted. So the enclosed resolution is consistent with Section 1701C of the First Class Township Code, and it's been prepared to utilize unencumbered funds that were actually received by the township to adjust and reconcile line items that have gone over budget as applicable. This exercise is necessary to be conducted at the conclusion of each fiscal year to ensure that the township can adequately justify and explain any budget overages during the 24 fiscal year audit to be conducted during 2025. So in other words, the township has taken in enough funds year to date that are not appropriated to any other purpose to account for the line items that went over budget as identified within the enclosed resolution. Additionally, there are also sufficient funds to cover the overages in the expense line items that came in under budget for 2024. So there are a total of 15 line items across the couple thousand line items across the few funds that we have an over budget amount. So in the general fund, the over budget total of $97,679.15 is offset by the general fund insurance line, which was under budget by $124,948 2022. For reference, as of December 12, 2024, the total surplus of the township as forecasted estimated right now is $1,973,789.27, recognizing that the total expenditures were $1,927,209.16 less than the revised budgeted amount of $20,086,461. Fire tax fund over budget total of $8,428.12 is offset by the fire fund's operating contingency line, which was under budget by $19,148.20. For reference, as of December 12, 2024, the total surplus is $767,491.97, recognizing that the total expenditures were $632,303.81, with an encumbered amount of $137,080 for the recently approved capital projects, less than the revised budgeted amount of $3,080,080. The refuse fund over budget total of $80,120.92 is offset by the refuse fund's professional services line, which is under budget by $131,100. For reference, as of December 12, 2024, the total surplus is $422,035.62, recognizing that the total expenditures were $4,639,943.15 less than the revised budgeted amount of $4,752,414. The capital fund over budget total of $1,816.55 is offset by the capital fund's street construction line, which is under budget by $362,245.63. So upon review of the packet tonight, the Exhibit A was actually incorrect. I respectfully request and want to confirm with Attorney Zader that we can plug in the correct numbers for Exhibit A. Would it be advisable to encapsulate that in the motion, and how would you like that to be memorialized?
I think specifically noting it in the motion to adopt the resolution is fine. I don't think we need to refer this to a later meeting.
Okay, so with that in mind, just for the edification of the board, I will just briefly summarize what the overages were that are set forth in Exhibit A. So in the executive department, for health insurance, there were several over budget amounts for health insurance overall, and that's due to the fact that we in 2024 separated each of the department's health insurance amounts for each department, and there were some unanticipated consequences to that, in the sense that if there were overages for people changing plans or so forth, or going from, a regular plan to a health savings account plan, which requires some certain reimbursements, there's nowhere to absorb that per each department. So that's why you're seeing some of those overages. So for example, in executive, the amount over budget was $3,199.53. For human resources, a similar situation with FICA. The amount over budget was $1,743.76, and health insurance was $1,948.62. In the information technology department, the health insurance also went over by $1,885.48. In the police department, dental went over by $304.78, and health insurance was over by $72,561.90. In Parks and Recreation, moving on to contracted services, there was an amount over budget of $16,035.08. That's due to the fact primarily that portable toilets came in much higher than anticipated for the year due to the need. In the fire fund, public safety supplies, that went over by $671.61 due to a large spill that occurred in the township. And we needed to replace the spill products above what was expected for the year. For insurance, the amount over budget was $3,572.05. Two of the fire departments under budgeted for their increased costs for the 2024 insurance packages. For Citronia Fire Department, they went over budget in contracted IT and networking, $121.93. Woodlawn Fire Department went over in 3 items: accounting, testing, and maintenance services and repair. The accounting was $1,031.25. Auditing costs were higher than anticipated. For the 2024 year, this has been corrected in the 2025 budget. Testing fees, $1,836.18. Some of their annual testing of their equipment was not accounted for in the 24 budget. Maintenance services and repair, amount over budget was $1,195.10. There were some unforeseen situations during 2024 that caused them to spend more than what was budgeted. In the refuse fund, we went over under contracted services by $80,120.92. So that budget adjustment is necessary to reflect the actual pricing for the 2024 to 2028 5-year JP Mascaro contract. So it's important to note that the revenue line item was calculated correctly for the current contract price, so there are no revenue impacts. Capital fund, the amount over budget, as noted earlier, was $1,860.55. That was due to the fact that we had to account for prevailing wages for the new electric sign for the Township campus. That was $465. And then the remaining overage amount of $1,352 was for additional fencing materials needed for the slope of the parking lot and the access drive for the gate project that occurred earlier this year. Other than that, all of the other previous items that are encapsulated in this exhibit were previously approved by the board by motion. So we are just memorializing all of those changes. For example, for ARPA, for the capital purchases for this year, all of that's been encapsulated into to the exhibit and memorialized. So with that being said, unless there's any other questions, I would seek to approve the resolution contingent upon inserting the corrected Exhibit A, which memorializes everything that I just read out loud.
Very good. Thank you. Are there any board questions on this information?
Tom, just one question. Under the capital funds for some of those vehicles, it states that we're going to get the grant money that'll cover those costs. So
yeah, that's the incorrect sheet. So we've already received that grant money.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So if the amount over budget was 26,000 and the grant was and some change, and the grant was 41,000 and almost 42,000. So the difference between the two, that's 16,000 difference.
That's already been absorbed within the 24 budget.
I just have a general comment. Thank you and to the finance staff and departments for looking at each line item and coming back to the board for these adjustments. It's very interesting to see the nuances that go on with a very 1,000 line item budget, and to have just a small handful is remarkable to reflect the purchasing and watching of the budget during the year. So this is really interesting for me to review. I appreciate the work that's gone into this to present it in such a readable fashion for us.
Yeah, we had significantly less line items that were impacted than 23.
I recall, yes.
Yeah.
Very good.
I would agree, and just say, reviewing in your memo, Tom, again, I know we're not at the end of the year yet, last few days in the month of December for our financial reports, but just the size of the surpluses in each of the funds really is a testament to the budgeting skills of yourself and the department heads and the finance department for 2024, as well as everyone, certainly being mindful of spending. So it's always good to see the size of the surpluses in each of these funds. So thank you.
Thank you to the finance department and Herb Bender and all the department heads who do a great job in tracking their budgets on a regular basis.
Congratulations to the team. Any other board comment? Any public comment? Yes. You give your name and address. We did see a
That's all I want to say.
significant increase for Emmaus, yes, unfortunately. Thank you. Any other public comment?
Sure. My comment was that as long as the modifications are covered in the description read by the township manager, there's no need to defer a decision on this resolution to another meeting.
Very good. At this time, is there a motion to adopt said resolution authorizing supplemental appropriations from funds actually received within the 2024 fiscal year to balance designated line item expenditures within the 2024 approved South Whitehall Township General Fund budget with the inserted corrected Exhibit A? I will make that motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. 7F, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township, Lehigh County, Pennsylvania, authorizing the execution of professional services agreements with Kimley Horn and Associates Incorporated for the development of the South Whitehall Township Transportation Plan Phase 2. I'll ask Long Range Planner Chris Stroller to please present.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. The comprehensive plan calls for 3 priority implementation actions related to transportation. Active transportation, looking at our active transportation network, transportation safety, looking at the safety corridors in the township, and a comprehensive transportation plan, looking at things such as freight truck routes, reclassification of roadways, and so forth. Phase 1 of the transportation plan was kicked off earlier this year. That covered the topics of public outreach and engagement, development of that active transportation network, and identification of our priority safety concerns on roadways and mitigation strategies for that. We are currently in draft of that plan and hoping to get that out to the steering committee in early January for review, following with a public comment period. Tonight, we are requesting a resolution to proceed with the second phase of this transportation plan to identify the topics of reclassification of township roadways by both functional classification and the character or surrounding contextual classes. Freight, looking at analyzing and evaluating our township's roadways to identify appropriate truck routing and movement of freight on local roads. And traffic, identifying the highest congestion areas and analyzing appropriate mitigation strategies for that. So the township released a request for quotes and qualifications earlier this year. We had interest in several firms to look at the utilization of big data or a culmination of probe data and large data sources that we can use to inform a lot of the recommendations as part of the second phase. This is really the phase of the plan that we are looking for data-driven results to give us the justification for future policy changes, mitigation strategies, and so forth. Kind of the quantitative review of this. As much as staff, we pride ourselves on thinking we can do a lot of this. It definitely takes some additional extra professional hands. So tonight we present the proposal from one of the firm that we're recommending, Kimley Horn. Their local office out of, I believe, Harrisburg, but it is a nationally recognized firm dealing with transportation engineering and planning to assist with the development of the plan, the data analysis, and sourcing that data and coming up with the recommendations, working with us on township staff. You'll see the proposal in your packet. The Kimley Horn presented an excellent proposal. During our conversations with them, they're very understanding of the needs of our township specifically, and how we can use this information to look at kind of our local roads and beyond just the kind of cookie cutter approach, as we've started to sort of do with some of our other plans associated with the comprehensive plan. And they submitted a proposal. They were the second lowest bidder at $106,460. The township currently has around $80,000 budgeted for this, still within the year of 2024. So what we're proposing tonight in the resolution in front of you is authorizing the township manager to execute a contract with Kimley Horn for 2 phases of this project. The first phase would be encumbering the funds this year of, I believe it's $74,955, which would start some of the data analysis and preparation of that data. And then in 2025, the remainder of that proposed contract would be executed in a second contract of $31,505. The resolution tonight is authorizing the township manager to execute both of those contracts so that we don't have to wait for a whole nother meeting and come back for that. It's more just an administrative purpose to get those two together to encumber funds this year and then early next year. The proposed timeline for this is looking at hopefully getting the final plan together at the beginning of the summer. So we will be back obviously before that with phase 1 of the plan, and then phase 2 we would have in the summer, and that would have everything, including the mitigation strategies, including that. So we'll come back with periodic updates to the township as we move forward following phase 1 and getting this work started.
Very good, Chris. Thank you for compiling all of this information and presenting it for including the proposal from Kimley Horn, which is included in the packet. If the community is interested in reading, it's available to be downloaded off of tonight's meeting packet. But it was very informative. They certainly had a lot of qualifications that we're very pleased to read, and I'm looking forward to the work that they will do with the township. This is certainly a long time coming. We've had multiple resident complaints about traffic and trucks, and as our township as well as our region continues to grow, this is very timely. So thank you for presenting this, and I certainly support and look forward to your updates and the finished product as we move through this. Thank you. I'll open it up to board comments.
I would just, again, sort of echo similar comments and say, especially on freight, the township's freight network, truck routes, even if it's not necessarily happening in South Whitehall at the moment, as we see other municipalities, especially North Whitehall, Upper Macungie, continue to have new warehouses. It'll inevitably lead to additional truck traffic coming through, not just our main roads such as 309, but also other important roads as well. So there's really never been, I think, a better time to address that, and not just evaluate the network, but hopefully provide the township with a number of solutions for reducing the impact that these trucks have on some of our non-state roads and in our neighborhoods. So I really appreciate this, and I look forward to some of the deliverables that will eventually come out of this plan. So thank you, Chris.
Well said. Any other comments from the board?
Yeah, I agree with both of you, both well said. Thank you, Chris. This company, it was so nice to see that how highly it's ranked, 10th and 7th. That's really impressive. But the thing that got me the most is the mitigation of our problems and also the freight corridors and how we could possibly make some of our roads restricted to trucks. I think that's really important to maintain our safety, and we're looking for pedestrian and biking safety and just walkability and movability. I just feel it's really imperative to do this, and I'm glad we're going forward with them. So it's exciting. I wish it would go faster, but I'm glad we are where we are because we're just constantly progressing with this. So thank you.
Yeah, I just, what it said, Monica, they're planners. Fast. The only thing I did have is, like they said, truck traffic is on everybody's mind. And it looks like you have that kickoff meeting to be in the beginning of January. Is that going to, do you think that's going to be enough time to get the word out to the public, to the residents, to give them the opportunity to share their thoughts and feelings on this, and as well as educating, because we get a lot of questions in the difference between a state road and local road and what we can do and what we can't do.
So to clarify the phases of the plan, the first phase that we went through this year, the engage, was the leading the public engagement on that. And this second phase is really more of the data collection and analysis. There isn't any public engagement directly with the consultant proposed as part of this. We will have continuing updates at Board of Commissioners meetings, and at the compilation of this information, we'll certainly have a review standpoint, but there isn't a specific public meeting for this phase of the plan, because a lot of the information during the past year that we gained through public meetings and the surveys, even though the plan that we're coming together now in January deals with just the active transportation network and the safety corridors, we heard a lot of that same sort of feedback of high congestion corridors, areas that we need to look at. So this is kind of the step for us to dig down into the data and look at that and come up with potential options for this. So it's really more of getting that data-driven approach and justification for what we've heard, and coming up with those kind of priority areas that we can identify.
I would just add that I kind of envisioned, as far as the public engagement, is as we progress through the process and the project, using the website to put some of that information out there and get comments back. The way it's structured, I think a lot of the comments and the engagement is going to be on the back end of it, It's really that data-driven solutions, and then we can get comments kind of towards the phase 2 of this project. But I envision, one of the ways that we're able to lower costs for the consultants is to handle public engagement. So that's why you don't see any of that in the proposal. But there's always some sort of engagement, whether it's through commission meetings or if something comes up and we really want to drive something home or get additional input, we certainly have the flexibility as staff to handle that. So I see, again, really this first phase is data crunching and getting that together, but I do see an opportunity to engage the public from a staff level and less so from the consultants.
So you're going on the data that you have now. How do they project numbers? So let's use the one on Orfield Road, right? So the warehouse is going on Orfield Road. We anticipate them going down Orfield Road, let's say cutting through Suncrest to get to, Cedar Crest. And, if we choose or not to choose to limit that, then the Orfield Road and Cedar Crest intersection would have to be updated. Would they make those recommendations at this point?
So the projection part of it, I think, is where the local knowledge comes in, and working with regional stakeholders, Lehigh Valley Planning Commission, neighboring communities, to kind of see what projects are coming so that we can kind of look at where the data is showing, like the historical data, and then we can say, all right, now we're going to add 100 trucks to this, potentially add 100 trucks to this corridor because of these projects. So we'll be working with the consultants to help guide some of those future projections based on local knowledge.
Would they make then is this part where they would make recommendations based? So if they say we use Ritter Road, we recommend Ritter Road not be used for trucks. Therefore, if we don't use them for trucks, then we have to improve that an intersection. Would they make that recommendation so that when we do look at further development, that somewhere along the line, somebody's going to try to get somebody to pay for it? Not
so part of the way the plan is structured is we have the classification, which will also help with some of that future development. So if we have roads classified as a certain character, based on character, so that's going to be one level of recommendations. Coming out of this, we'll have, I envision, identified freight corridors, so places that we would want to encourage truck traffic, and then areas where we should consider truck restrictions. The truck restriction process gets more granular, and as we worked with Pidcock on the truck restrictions on Ridgeview, we start looking into geometry. So what we'd have from the consultant would be the list of the corridors, potentially improvements based on those corridors, and restrictions, so that then we could take that list and we could work as the board and staff and make recommendations on prioritizing that restriction list.
All right.
The other important piece of that with the data collection, the modeling, is to identify if we restrict one road to make sure we're not just shifting the issue to another road. So that's where kind of looking at it from a whole network perspective and seeing it gives us a better idea of where that capacity is and how we can kind of holistically look at not just shutting down one road, but kind of creating that network.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Great, thank you. If there's no other board questions, is there any public comment? Yes.
Hang on, Don.
So does this count for, is Bronstein still coming, the big 1,000 acres and stuff? Is that in consideration of the traffic coming down Cedar Crest and Moorfield and all that stuff? Is that being taken into account, or is Bronstein not really coming?
So when we do any projections, we'll look at potential development. It will be identified as potential development. We haven't heard anything from the Jaris project, other than they've been involved in some of the stakeholder meetings we've had for the overlay zone that we're working on. So they've been engaged in that respect.
So we'll try to take that into account. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Is there anyone online with a comment? Very good. Do I have a motion to adopt said resolution authorizing the execution of professional services agreement with Kimley Horn for development of South Whitehall Transportation Plan Phase 2?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you very much. Under motions, agenda item 8A, we have a motion to approve revised 2025 minimum municipal obligation MMO for police and public works personnel defined benefit plans. I'll ask Township Manager Tom Petrucci to present.
Thank you. So the board previously approved the minimum municipal obligations for all of the defined benefit plans earlier this year in September. In accordance with state requirements, you must approve them on or before September 30th of each year. So if you're going to revise the MMO, it needs to be done by on or before December 31st of the current year. So any submissions or revisions after that date would result in an audit finding from the Auditor General's office in the event of an audit review. So upon review of the MMOs that we approved earlier, specifically for the police pension plan and for the public works defined benefit pension plan, we need to make a couple adjustments. So for the police pension plan, the employee contribution is actually 2.5% for the 2025 fiscal year and not 2.25%, which was in effect for the 24 fiscal year. And that's in accordance with the current collective bargaining agreement. So the adjustment would lower the 2025 MMO by $12,023 to the revised 2025 MMO amount of $1,337,009. Additionally, with Public Works Union negotiations now concluded, the employee contribution was raised from 1.5% to 1.75% for the new collective bargaining agreement commencing January 1st, 2025. This adjustment would lower the 2025 MMO by $1,738 to the revised 2025 MMO amount of $779,177. So I'd respectfully request the motion to approve both of those revised 2025 MMOs for the police and public works defined benefit pension plans.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for preparing this information for us. Any questions from the board? Any public comment? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve revised 2025 minimum municipal obligation MMO for police and public works personnel defined benefit plans? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. On to correspondence and information, boards and commissions. Tom, if you'd please review.
Thank you. So upcoming meetings and events with details to be posted on the Township website are as follows. Tuesday, December 24th and Wednesday, December 25th, the offices are closed in observance of the Christmas holiday. Wednesday, January 1st, New Year's Day, offices are closed. Thursday, January 2nd is at 7 p.m. is the next Board of Commissioners meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. And next agenda item 9B is the public notice for South Whitehall Township 2025 meeting schedules. Tom, would you present?
Yes. Would everyone like me to read every date or no?
I don't believe so.
Okay. All right. So the meeting schedule will be posted on the Township website very shortly. Of course, Board of Commissioners meetings are, or as they always are, the first and third Wednesday of each month commencing at 7 p.m. There was just a few changes for some of the other meetings where there was a conflict with a holiday or if there was any availability issues. But other than that, please refer to the website for the Township meeting schedule.
Very good. Thank you. Yes.
I just had a quick comment. As I was going through all the dates, I noticed that the BOC meeting for 10/1/25 falls on Yom Kippur. It begins that day at sunset. So just a heads up to be cognizant of who's on the schedule, because I do remember a time in 2023 where we had an applicant come before us and he couldn't make it because it was on that holiday schedule. So bringing that to your attention for that date.
Thank you.
It's a good reminder. Thank you. Agenda item 10, direction discussion. We have the South Whitehall Historic Resource Inventory first draft. Ask our long-range planner, Chris Stroller, to please present.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. So I believe it was this time last year, the board authorized the staff and Jeff Marshall, our historic preservation consultant, to conduct a historic resource survey of the resources in the township. And Jeff has been busy. He has been very busy. Many of you have probably seen him maybe driving around town. We have been working on compiling a number of resources and information from text to what Jeff could find out in the field to any historic documents that we had. He came up with probably well over 140, I believe, initial resources. So we've been working to kind of whittle that down. What you have in front of you is the summary document, kind of a first draft of what could be the township's historic resource inventory. So this would be something that is memorialized with the township to assist with documenting what our historic resources are and assist with any future preservation techniques, especially from a regulatory perspective. We have some historic resources identified already on the official map. This would be an opportunity to expand that. Within that document, we identified the types of resources that we looked at, structures and villages, farmsteads, that sort of thing. And then some guidance on potential next steps and preservation techniques. So really, we're just bringing it to you tonight as kind of a first look. There's certainly some work that we need to do to clean that up a little bit. We have a lot more data, a lot more information from Jeff that we want to incorporate into that and start to consider staff's working on developing an ordinance that would actually outline what the process could be for the board to designate some of these historic resources as local historic resources, including kind of that 4-level classification system that's in there and that we introduced in the landscapes plan. There's very importantly, also what's in there is just some general guidance on how we continue to update this resource inventory. As much as we love that Jeff could get out and do as much as he can, we want to make sure that we're open to if something does come to the township or through our own research, we identify something that may not have been included in this first blush. We can add that in appropriately and give guidance to the board in how we would do that. So if there's any questions on that, we're not really looking for anything specific this evening. We're going to continue to work on it and come back to you with that and potentially an ordinance.
Chris, thank you. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Dave. Thank you to Jeff Marshall, our consultant. This is just fabulous. I was really impressed with the presentation, the history that I am learning reading through this draft, the structures, the 18th century. It's fabulous. I'm looking forward to the community having a chance to read and learn along with us and actually taking some steps to memorialize our history. It's not been done here, to my knowledge, publicly, and it's long past due. And this is just an outstanding document. And I thank you to all involved.
Jeff was pretty amazing. I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was very impressed with the resources that we have in this township and the condition that they're in. And he's seen it all. And to get someone like that excited, I think says a lot about what we have
wow,
here.
That's really interesting.
Some of his comments were talking about state park type level potential for the level of history and the state of some of the structures. So he's very excited. He's enjoyed his time coming here. Yeah, he's become very fond of Grumpy's. So when he comes up, he always goes to Grumpy's.
Another landmark of South
Yes,
Whitehall.
yes.
And I think we can add, so once we kind of get through this process, we have been talking about how do we, once it's adopted, roll this out to the public. And I think last year we had a great little event at the library. We've talked about maybe getting Jeff to come back, and once we're sort of set, we have something to give like a little presentation and continue some of those conversations. The library's been a great partner. We can certainly host some good meetings here, and there's a lot of information to share with the public and give the public an opportunity to share as well. That's something that we didn't have a lot of time to do while Jeff was here, and he got to talk to a couple of people and a couple of landowners. But I think it's also great to kind of get those stories and see how those get woven into the documentation that we have.
Fantastic. Thank you.
I would just add, I mentioned this to Dave before the meeting. I said, looking through this report over the past few days, it felt like an early Christmas gift, honestly, for those of us who just really love local history, love the history that exists in this community. I would agree with what you said. Talking to Jeff at a couple of those meetings, he's an interesting guy, and he brings an unbelievable wealth of knowledge and passion. And I never thought I could talk about barn architecture with someone for so long and extensively as I did, and I loved every minute of it. He's really a one-of-a-kind guy, and we're blessed to have him as part of this process. Just this document alone, obviously there's work to do, things we can do to preserve these, working with property owners, but just having this consolidated document for generations to come, it is, and I've been on the lookout for sort of a compilation of South Whitehall history, and honestly, this is probably the best gathering of historic information in South Whitehall in 50 years. So really good job. It's just incredible. My only question is, do we have a target date for completion of the inventory? Just in my interest, I mean, this is something we need to get out to the public in every way possible. Chris, what would you prefer? Yes.
We're planners.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, a lot of it left to do is just kind of cleaning up the data that we have and getting something ahead of you guys to start that class.
There's a million different ways to get this out, and I think as soon as we have that final product, I know even just on a personal level, I'm going to do whatever I can to spread the word on this, because what you guys have done with Jeff is incredible.
Yeah,
so thank you.
The biggest thing left is really reconciling the two lists that we have and making sure our numbering system makes sense. So it's a lot of data crunching and looking at our maps and making sure things are lined up. So that's really the biggest piece left. There was a lot to go through.
Yeah, this is what you have in front of you is really kind of that nice sort of history piece and the consumable piece, but then there's kind of the behind the scenes inventory database that we want to make sure, because when it comes to some of the things that we're talking about from a regulatory perspective, we want to make sure that's very well documented.
Incredible. Any other board comments?
Yeah, this is really beautifully done. And thank you so much. It's took a lot of time, a lot of hard work, and it's just so wonderful to see this. I especially love where you not only have the history and the facts and the architectural styles, but you have the pictures, these really beautiful pictures, so you can pull it all together. And it's such a complete, comprehensive package. Thank you.
So I'm sure he knows that the Mechanicsville Schoolhouse was right down the street from Crumpy's. Did you point that out to him?
I'll have to go through the database.
No, there is.
Notes were.
If you go down Mechanicsville Road, that building that looks like they changed to a garage, that was a Mechanicsville Schoolhouse back in the day.
I would not be surprised if that's not in Jeff's notes somewhere.
Okay.
So, and that's actually something that I think if you want to talk a little bit about what we want to do.
One of the things, the next step after the list is to kind of put that inventory out there and get comments, because local knowledge is
I didn't mean to. It was just he goes to Grumpy's.
Yeah.
Right down, like you talked about. Everyone knows the history of Grumpy's. Then they see that building looks like it's a garage. Don't realize that was this one-room schoolhouse back in the day. Like I think Manley went there.
So, so I guess we have one more suggestion. I think we need to put Jeff Marshall and Chris Peischel in a room and have them talk, and we can all just watch, because the knowledge, I think,
Between the
exchange
two
would be
individuals.
incredible.
So my, like, yeah, I appreciate, I know you do a lot of things like, how can we get some of these, parcels of land, these buildings and structures under protection, because, we're against father time and development.
So part of, in addition to the historic resource inventory, the landscapes plan, which looked at how we can address multiple resources in one landscape. So historic resource in the context. So what we're doing with the Jordan Valley overlay is trying to incentivize protection of resources. Resources being agricultural resources, natural resources, and historic resources. So hopefully, if we do it right, which we're trying, is we're going to have the ability and the incentives for developers to preserve historic structures, the context, and develop somewhere else. So we have preserved open space, agriculture, and historic in one location.
So, and we'll have the Jordan Valley State Park
There you
with
go.
the Troxel House, and the
Yeah.
barn, and
Yeah.
then the Peter Troxel House up the street.
Yeah, I'm digressing a little
I
bit,
know,
but
so
one of my
am I.
favorite stories
You got on the
is
tree, so I should turn my mic
Jeff
off.
and Chris were driving around, and Chris came back in with a picture of Jeff like running out of a moving car to get to a barn to look at. He's very excited.
It's wonderful to hear how passionate he was and is for history, and so excited about what we have here, because I know that we're all very excited, and I know the community will be as well. So what a great partnership, what a great energy you're explaining to us. So thank you. And we look forward to next steps.
Thanks.
Thank you. Old business, none. Courtesy of the floor, agenda item 12. Is there any member of the public who'd like to address the board on any non-agenda items? Is there anyone online? Very good. Agenda item 13 is department reports. Our executive department, community development, finance, parks and recreation, police, and public works have compiled reports for the board and the public, which basically delineate the work that they've done over this last year. And I don't believe we need to read them all out publicly tonight. Tom, I don't know if you had any overall comment you'd like to make as our township manager.
Just to say that, the reports are reflective of, the hard work that all the department heads put into everything this year. And, and it's hard to articulate all of the work that goes into some of these items, but, it's important to recognize the efforts and planning that are necessary, it's sometimes you put an item on a report and it's one sentence, but it could have taken hours and weeks of time, so just want to make sure everyone understands that. And thank you to all the department heads for your ongoing efforts.
Very well said. These reports will be available for the public to review. And as we close out the year, when I reviewed these reports, and I'm a commissioner, so I'm involved in the township. I pay attention. I'm at meetings. I'm aware of, I thought, some of what goes on here in each department with each team member. And I learned a lot from this. I learned that collectively, the individual work that you all do with hearts to serve this community is just really incredible. The achievements that were realized in this calendar year. I myself am very grateful, and I hope our community will take a moment to review these reports, to Tom's point, and realize every single day you're all here doing the work. So just want to express my gratitude to each individual and the collective work that we do, because South Whitehall is really an amazing township. We have a great community, and it's because of all of the work that all of you do. So many thanks to all of you.
I would just add, every year at the end of the year when I review these reports, I'm just always so impressed by the work of staff, as I always am, from management, department heads, public works, police, our solicitor, our engineer. Really, as a commissioner, it's one of the greatest privileges I think I've had to learn from you all and work with you all and continue to just play a small role in helping you all achieve your goals. So really, thank you. As we're near the end of the meeting, I hope you all have a wonderful holiday. Happy New Year, you and your families. And I looking forward to 2025 and seeing what we can continue to accomplish. So thank you. It really means a lot to me as an individual, and it means a lot, I know, to the community as well. So thank you.
I did fail to mention our fire departments and our emergency management will be presenting the reports in our January meeting so that they can have the totality of 2024. So we did not neglect them today. They will be in January.
Okay, congratulations for all your hard work and achievements. It's incredible. It really is. Do you all ever sleep? I mean, it's, what you've accomplished is amazing. So a question for you is consideration. I don't know if there's a link. I would hate to see all these reports get buried in the agenda because I know people sometimes don't go through hundreds of pages of agenda. Is there a link to draw people's attention to this? Like, this is what's going on in your township. This is what we're doing. Here are the reports. Because I think it's really important that the public sees this and has something that draws them to it so they know what's going on.
Yeah, we typically upload them to the township website so we can call it out on the front page of the website.
Excellent. Well said.
Thank you.
Excellent. Any other board member comments? Very good. Agenda item 14, I need a motion to authorize payment of invoices and disbursements for the last time in 2024.
So
Motion.
moved. Second.
Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. We have no executive session. Before I take a motion to adjourn, I do want to again take a moment to thank our staff and our township solicitor, township engineer, and all of our partners. I want to wish everyone here at the township as well as in our community a very happy holiday season and the very best for health and happiness in the new year. That being said, I do need a motion
Cheers.
to adjourn. Motion, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. This meeting is adjourned.